Hey boys and girls, Cursed Curator with more lovely content, and today we are back with the Curations Media of 1940. So this has been a long time in making. I have an entire list ready and made, so let's hop right into it with our first film, The Great Dictator. This film is about, well, but hold on, before I rush into anything, our director is Charlie Chaplin. Our writer is Charlie Chaplin, and our stars include Charlie Chaplin, Paulette Goddard, and Jack Oakey. So this film is about, well, a dictator named Einud Heinkel, who more or less tries to expand his empire, while a poor Jewish barber tries to avoid persecution from Heinkel's regime. If you can't tell, this is a parody of a certain dictator of this time frame, a certain mustache man, if you will. Um, this is one of the greatest films ever by, well, of course, Mr. Chaplin. It is a satire, of course, on fascism, which is always a fun time. Honestly, I am really surprised that Chaplin came out swinging with this bad boy. Obviously, this film got obviously banned in Nazi Germany, of course, and many people consider this to be one of the greatest films ever by Mr. Chaplin. Um, there's even a parody with a few other notable historical figures. For example, Benito Mussolini, who in this film is called Benzino Napolani. He rules the neighboring country of Bacteria. It is a intriguing film. Oh boy. But let us hop into the trivia. I want to speed through this because this was, we have a lot of films to go over. But this is a film where I actually considered doing a whole one and done for because this is a really good film. So, first piece of trivia. Adolf Hitler banned the film in Germany and all Nazi occupied countries. Curiosity got the best of him, and he had a print brought in through Portugal. History records that he screened it twice in private, but not his reaction. He was said to have laughed only once, which was during the barber chair scene between Henkel and Napolini. Charles Chaplin said, I'd give anything to know what he thought of it, especially when he finally lifted the ban in 1958. That's crazy that it's like even the war ended in 1945. It took 13 extra years for it to get unbanned. I mean, I guess because there were still plenty of Nazi sympathizers, that were, despite the shame it brings. I guess that's the case there. The movie. Oh wait, hold on. No, we're not gonna read that one again. According to documentaries on the making of the film, Sir Charles Chaplin began to feel more uncomfortable lampooning Hitler. The more he heard of Hitler's actions in Europe, ultimately, the invasion of France inspired Chaplin to change the ending of his film to include his famous speech. This film was financed entirely by Sir Charles Chaplin himself, and it was his biggest box office hit. Well, there we go. Up to our next film. This one is a really good one too. We are stacked with bangers, as I said before, back-to-back bangers. The Thief of Baghdad. Now, this is a lovely one. Our directors include Ludwig Berger, Michael Powell, Tim Willen. Writers include Miles Malleson, Lajos Burrow, Makalos Rosa. And our stars include Conrad Veditz, Sabu, and June Depries. As you've noticed, I'm including even the writers now. I want to give fair shake to everybody. So you're like, what is this about? This kind of feels like Aladdin, kinda. So, if I remember correctly, this is a film that more or less features. Let me look at my faults. More or less, after being tricked and cast out of Baghdad by the evil Jafar, King Adman joins forces with a thief named Abu. Basically, retake the throne and take the city and the princess that he loves. It's pretty similar to Aladdin, except because of course, Aladdin was not a king. That is where the difference begins. And also, our boy Genie is in this film is a djinn. That's where another difference is they are not outright as call him Genie. I guess because the term wasn't really being used back then. But our protagonist is very naive, which I think is it worked really well for the the whole film. He's a very curious fellow, and it makes things very interesting, especially when the Tsar convinces him to walk through the whole damn city. If you guys know anything about this TV show, I can't remember the name, but basically the damn boss disguises himself as a simple employee, and He's trying to figure out how the people, act, how the boss being around. And that's how he basically acted throughout the film for a bit. Um, but that's how Jafar sees his power. Because, he's like, well, hey, our king's dead. Hey, yo. But let us go to the trivia. Filming began in Britain, but because of the Blitz, the German air raids on London, the production relocated to Hollywood. There was such a long break in the production that Sabu's early scenes had to be reshot because he had grown several inches taller. Fun fact: every film that we'll be discussing today was made in the U.S. except for one. Only one of these films was in the UK. This one, I guess, technically counts in the UK, but it got to be moved. So, Lawrence W. Butler and Jack Whitney won an Academy Award for special effects, marking the first use of the manual blue screen technique. However, it's not the first movie to use blue screens to separate layers. Only the first to do so using color film instead of the black and white films created before using the dunning process. Reportedly the favorite film of Francis Ford Coppola. When he first met Michael Powell in a New York restaurant, Coppola introduced himself by walking across the room singing Sabu's song I Want to Be a Sailor at the top of his lungs to show he was a fan. Aww, that's actually pretty fucking cool. That is very cool. One second, people. Let me just make sure I have everything properly loaded. My list is kind of a little finicky right now. Okay, so my bad, people. But let's go to our next film. Next up is Rebecca. Rebecca is a also good film. But first, our director is Alfred Hitchcock. Writers include Daphne du Maurier, Robert E. Sherwood, Joan Harrison, and stars include Laurence Olivier, Joan Fontaine, and George Sanders. This, of course, is a Hitchcock film, and well, we all love ourselves some Hitchcock in this fucking this fan base. Ooh boy, oh boy. Um, so what's it about? Well, it's about a self-conscious woman who's adjusting to her new role as a wife. That is the whole thing. But she is how do I say this? She's intimidated by the presence of the ghost of the former wife. The first her it's the first wife and everything going on there. I thought it was a very unique take there. This is very despite it not being centered around being horror, I could see some very good and interesting horror elements. Especially considering how the main female lead acts. It was very suspenseful. I can word. um, who I will say here is the best actor in this entire film has to go to our lovely leading lady. I believe that is Joan Fontaine. Yes, it has to be. Because the other lady, I recognize her when she was playing as the other wife. Sorry. Something I forgot to include is my scores for the last two films, and let me quickly get this out of the way. I forgot to give scores. Your Great Dictator gets an 8. The Thief of Baghdad gets a 9. Excuse me for skipping over the scores. I was just so piped up for this, I forgot to do the scores. Oh boy. That's how it is sometimes. Oh boy, oh boy. So, let me hop into our trivia for the film of Rebecca. Over 20 actresses were screen tested for the role of Mrs. De Winter, which eventually went to the newcomer Joan Fontaine. One of them was Vivian Leigh, for whom Sir Laurence Olivier was pressing as they were a couple at the time. Per Sir Alfred Hitchcock's instructions, Dame Judith Anderson rarely blinks her eyes while playing Mrs. Danvers. Mrs. Danvers is hardly ever seen walking. She seems to glide. Sir Alfred Hitchcock wanted her to be seen solely from Joan Fontaine's character's anxious point of view, and this appeal was tied in with her fear about Mrs. Danvers appearing anytime unexpectedly. I love that. That is actually really cool. This film gets a 7 from me. So while yes, I enjoyed the horror aspects, I felt like there were areas where it could improve. The music was not horrible. I just felt like it could have been. It was like more intertwined. I would have enjoyed it even more. Our next film, Pride and Prejudice. Oh boy, this channel has a history of Pride and Prejudice after Oz's short. So, our director includes Robert Z. Leonard, excuse me. Writers Aldous Huxley, Jane Murfin, and Jane Austen. Hey, pop off. Stars include Greer Garson, Lawrence Oliver, Mary Boland. Okay, so as you can imagine, has a lot to do with the book, don't it? The arrival of a wealthy bachelors in town causes an uproar when families with single daughters aggressively seek engagements, including the Bennett family with 5 eligible daughters. Oh boy, oh boy. Written scandalous. But as you can imagine, with many films, they're not often accurate to the book. Um, One person actually said it's not accurate. It's not true to the book, but who cares? That's how I feel towards this film. Is that it didn't need to be accurate to the book. It really put its own twist on things. I think it really paid off in the end. It was a really good film. Before we get to the actual score, I do want to say, I thought that the actor who played Mr. Darcy, which is Lawrence Oliver, he he owned his role. I thought that was really really good acting on his part. Although I actually did enjoy Anne Rufford's or rather Rutherford her role as Lydia Bennett. That was good. But enough of speaking. Let's go right to the trivia. According to Anne Rutherford, although the filmmakers were committed to begin shooting on a particular date, they discovered that the producer, David O. Selznick, had used every available reel of Technicolor in existence to make Gone with the Wind 1939. Therefore, despite the lavish sets and opulent costumes, this movie had to be shot in black and white. That bastard. He used all of it. Every last one of them. This movie sparked considerable interest in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. At least 5 editions of the novel were printed and coincide with the movie's release. In less than a decade after the movie's release, the novel had grown so popular that it had gone through 21 printings. Crazy. Phil Silvers was asked to screen test for a role as Bakir. Despite having a strong New York accent, it turned out to be a cruel prank by studio executives who passed the screen test around Hollywood. In his autobiography, Silvers says, "These 3 minutes were perhaps the funniest I've ever done." Damn, that's actually fucking cruel. That's actually cruel. So, let us give our score. I think this film is deserving of a 9. Yes, I know I'm hitting out pretty big scores, but this is a really good year. 1940s are a solid year full of so many good films. Even the ones that I deemed not essential were just, chef's kiss. But enough talking. Let's go to our next film, The Grapes of Wrath. This is a solid film by John Ford. Ooh, my lord. But our writers include Nonley Johnson, John Steinbeck, and our stars include Henry Fonda, Jane Darwell, and John Cardine. So Henry Fonda, we've seen plenty of times thus far in our journey. So it's nice to see somebody that we can recognize. Here's what this film is about. It is short and sweet and simple. It's about an Oklahoma family driven off their farm by poverty and hopelessness of the Dust Bowl, the good old Dust Bowl. They join a westward migration to California, suffering the misfortunes of homelessness and the Great Depression. Yep, it's the Great Depression, baby, and it is going horribly. If you don't know, this is 1940, so a certain world war is currently, going about. Meanwhile, America's, limping. That's what I will say. So, let me go down to our trivia of today. But what I will say before we get into the trivia is that I think their take on this is really important historically, just because it tackles the economic hardship of the American person of this time frame, and it's really true to to the actual reality of it. I think it's very important considering in modern day we often complain about how bad things are, but it doesn't compare to what these people really experienced, obviously. Prior to filming, producer Daryl F. Zanuck sent undercover investigators out to the migrant camps to see if John Steinbeck had exaggerated about the squalor and unfair treatment meted out there. It was horrified discovered that Steinbeck had actually downplayed what went on in the camps. Yep, that's how it happens. John Steinbeck loved the movie and said that Henry Fonda as Tom Joad made him believe my own words. John Stein, words. John, oh, you know what? John Ford banned all makeup and perfume from his set on the grounds that it was not in keeping with the tone of the picture. There we go. Sorry, there was two with the words John, and I want to do one. It was not John Steinbeck. Okay, so this film, 8. This is a really essential and important film. Next up, Foreign Correspondent. This is a really good one. I really enjoyed this one. If you don't know, this film takes place on the eve of the Second World War. That's why I enjoy this. Not in real life, obviously. I don't know when the filming actually began for the actual film. Considering when the war begins and when the film actually came out, obviously. But excuse me. Ooh, oh my lord. But it's more like I said, it's about a film about the eve of a world war, and we see a young American reporter try to expose enemy agents in London. That is the entire gist of things. This is a film by Alfred Hitchcock, of course, and our writers include Charles Bennett, Joan Harrison, James Hilton. Our stars include Joe McCree, Lorraine Day, and Herbert Marshall. Quick little water break. Okay, so what do I think about this film? I think it is a very intriguing take on the World War and spies and such. This is one of those films where I did not know where it was going to go. Of course we've seen spy films before this, but I think this is like one that really goes into the whole shindig. That is my opinion. I also really enjoyed George Sanders in this. He's a character we do not see much of, unfortunately. But I do know that he was I believe in a Jungle Book, actually. I might be wrong about that, but no, he was he was Khan the Tiger, if I remember correctly. It's been such a long time. But let's go to the trivia. Shooting was completed on May 29th, 1940, after which Sir Alfred Hitchcock made a visit to England. He returned on July 3rd, with the word that the Germans were expected to start bombing at any time. Ben Hecht was hurriedly called in and wrote the tactile and final scene set at a London radio station. It was filmed on July 5th. And the real life bombing started on July 10th, 1940. Albert Basserman, who played the Dutch noble Van Meer, couldn't speak a word of English and learned all his lines. Okay. I cannot word this, I'm sorry. Phenotypically. There we go. I probably said it wrong, but at least you're getting it. Producer Walter Wagner and Sir Alfred Hitchcock clashed readily during shooting. Wagner kept wanting to have the script rewritten with every news story reporting changes in the European situation. Hitchcock, who made in making a movie without the script, is in absolutely final form before shooting began, pointing out that even if the movie were up to date at the time of shooting, it would be out of date by the time he finished post-production. It was wrong to release. I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. This film, what do I want to give it? It's not a 10, but it's not a 9. 8. This is a really good year. I'm sorry, but it seems like I'm giving out constant 10s or like super high scores. It's just these are really good films for this year. Next up is The Shop Around the Corner. Now this is not a film I didn't enjoy. I didn't really enjoy it that much, but it had a strong cast still. Our director includes Ernest Lubitsch. Writers include Samson Robinson, McLuce Laszlo, and Ben Hecht. Stars include Margaret Sutherland, James Stewart, and Frank Morgan. A very strong cast. Oh boy. So the reason why I don't care for it too much is that it is a romantic comedy, and romance is not really my thing. But the film is about how do I say this? Two employees you cannot understand rather stand each other. And unexpectedly they are falling in love with one another. They are also each other's pen pals, anonymously, of course. They do not know each other. That are they're just pen pals of each other, obviously. But I think James Stewart and of course Margaret Sullivan did amazing, spectacular. But again, I don't care about romance movies too much. Even though Margaret Sullivan was infamous for her quick temper and disdainful attitude towards Hollywood, James Stewart counted working with her as one of the greatest, rather one of the great joys of his professional career. Because he knew her personally, he was more equipped than most of the cast and crew members to deal with her frequent and volatile emotional outbursts. In the book, Ernest Lubitsch, Laughter in Paradise, Ernest Lubitsch called this film the best picture I ever made in my life. Well, I mean, pop off, man. Soon after wrapping up principal photography, Ernest Lubitsch talked to the New York Sun in January 1940. It's not a big picture, just a quiet little story that seemed to have some charm. It didn't cost very much for such a cast, under $500,000. It was made in 28 days. I hope it had some charm. It did have charm. I'll give it that. But for my score, I'm giving it a 6. Again, this is me being biased. I don't care about romance films like that. But I say as our next two films are literally also romance films. So next up is My Favorite Wife. Director Garrison Cannon. Writers include Bella Sepwick, Sam Spelwick, Leo McCary. Stars include Irene Dunne, Cary Grant, and Randolph Scott. So this film is solely carried by the two big names you heard me say at the very start, which is of course Irene Dunne and Cary Grant. I love Grant. Grant's an amazing actor, and well, Dunne they really complete each other. That's my opinion, at the very least. The film is more or less about a missing woman who's been gone for multiple years now. She comes home out of nowhere, and she learns that her husband has remarried the same exact day that she has returned. Scandalous. Despite the film being romance, I thought it had some pretty solid comedic moments, which really does upsell it, of course. One second. It's been a very interesting time. Of course, mind you, like I said, romance, but it is of course has comedy elements. It's a screwball at its core. The romance has really screwed me around with it. Spores. It is slow paced too, which is unusual, at least in my opinion, for a screwball. They are usually quite fast paced. Keep the jokes flowing basically. But to trivia. Cary Grant and Randolph Scott, who play rivals in this film, lived together on and off between 1932 and 1944. Second of 3 movies that paired Cary Grant and Irene Dunne. Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem Enoch Arden, about a fisherman's presumed lost at sea who returns to find his wife remarried, was the basis of the 5 prior films. Enoch Arden, 1914, Die Toten Kleine Reiter, Enoch Arden, 1919, D.W. Griffith's Enoch Arden, Part 1, Jesus Christ. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Only basic idea of a spouse who returns is kept, with the spouse presumed lost now being the wife. However, in all of the films, the surname of the couple in question remains Arden. Yes, there's a bunch of films that all around the same general idea, and have this pretty similar character naming schemes. It's just this time, this film has a woman be the missing spouse. Oh boy. What do I want to give this film? I suppose, in any case, I'll give it another 6. Just because it wasn't a bad film. I just didn't enjoy it as much as someone else would. Now, this next film, despite it being, a whole romance, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was The Philadelphia Story. This was a really good film. Our director includes George Cukor, Writers include Donald Ogden Stewart, Philip Berry, Watto Salt. Stars include Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, and James Stewart. Another very strong cast. Oh boy. So the film is about a rich woman's ex-husband and a tabloid reporter who turn up just before her planned remarriage. She begins to learn the truth about herself. It is quite a discovery. I think Catherine, she kind of destroyed everybody else in this film, in my opinion. Catherine was really, really doing good. Debatably, it could be considered one of the greatest romantic comedy films ever. Now, do I think it is the greatest? No. There's so many films out there, and it's really hard to really pin down the greatest. I can be biased and say it is. So, what I enjoyed the most is just having a show out of nowhere, and they just really surprise her eventually. And there's so much you can say about this film. I just think the characters really grow throughout the film, and I think that's something that's unique, considering there's not many films that actually do show the growth until, like, the middle point to the end. And even then, so that's like just at the end where, the character says sudden change of heart for some damn reason. That's very common, actually. So this film was shot in 8 weeks and required very few retakes. During the scene where James Stewart hiccups when drunk, you can see Cary Grant looking down and grinning. This says the hiccup wasn't scripted. Cary Grant was on the verge of breaking out of laughing and had to hose himself quickly. Stewart apparently spontaneously thought of hiccuping in the drunk scene without telling Grant. When he began hiccuping, Grant turned to Stewart, saying, "Excuse me." The scene required only one take. James Stewart never felt he deserved the Best Actor Oscar for his performance in this film, especially since he had initially felt miscast. He always maintained that Henry Fonda should have won instead for the Grapes of Wrath 1940, and that award was probably the deferred payment for my work on Mr. Smith Goes to Washington 1939. Cary Grant demanded top billing and $137,000 salary, a huge amount at the time, equivalent of $2.8 million in 2020. As it turned out, however, he donated his entire earnings to the British War Relief Fund. You know what? They had it in the first half. They really had me going there like, wow, getting a little greedy there, buddy. Nah, man, war relief. This next film was a hoot. It was a hoot. His Girl, Friday. Oh boy, oh boy. His director includes Howard Hawks. It's not director. The writers include Charles Leonard, Ben Heck, Charles MacArthur. Stars Cary Grant, Rosalind Russell, and Ralph Bellamy. I noticed that Cary Grant is getting a lot of work. Ooh boy. How do I say this for this description? This is a very interesting film. Ooh boy. So we see this film and we are introduced to a reporter. Hildy Johnson. She goes into the offices in New York for her workplace, and she tells them that she's quitting, and that is what is going on there. She's an H reporter, of course, and she is going to be remarrying, and he basically buys himself time to win her back by promising her a exclusive interview with a whole death row convict. That is the entire gist. I thought the comedy here was solid because you can tell that our leading lady, Rosalind Russell, was really selling the role for Jilted X. I thought that was really interesting. Our leading sir, or rather, Mr. Cary Grant, towards the end of the film, we basically, how do I say this? The characters accept each other for who they are. They know that they will not change, and they end up. A spoiler alert. This is your chance to skip ahead. All right, if you didn't skip ahead, that's on you. They get back together. They remarry. That's the That's the thing there. What I will say is that this is a film, as I said before, but it goes quite fast. Because it's still a screwball, no matter what. It's going very fast, so if you're not keeping up, you can get lost in the sauce pretty easily. Let's go to trivia. Rosalind Russell thought while shooting that she didn't have as many good lines as Cary Grant had, so she hired an advertisement writer through her brother-in-law and had him write more clever lines for dialogue. Since Howard Hawks allowed for spontaneity and ad-libbing, he and many of the cast crew didn't notice it. But Cary Grant knew she was up to something, leading him to greet her every morning. What have you got today? One of the first films, preceded by Stage Door 1937, to have characters talk over the lines of each other. The lines about our characters for a more realistic sound. Prior to this, movie characters completed their lines before the next lines were started. It is estimated that normal rate of verbal dialogue in most films is around 90 words a minute. In His Girl Friday, delivery had been clocked at 240 words a minute. So as I said before, you can get lost in the sauce. This film is a solid. This is my first 10. First 10 of a day. This is a 10. If I didn't score the last film, which I'm pretty sure I did I give it an 8 or a 9? Well, it's up there. Next up is Dance Girl Dance. This is a interesting film. It's a musical though, so you already know my opinion on musicals. Directors include Dorothy Ardzner, Roy Del Roof. Writers include Tess Selzinger, Frank Davis, Vicky Baum. Stars include Maureen O'Hara, Lewis Howard, and Lucille Ball, who was, I believe correctly, she was in my People of This Decade. That was a good video. I enjoyed that one. That was a really good video. So, it is about, well, a troupe of, I'm going to say this word wrong, of danuses who become unemployed. One of them decides, to take up the burlesque dancing, while another dreams of performing ballet. And that is the film. I don't care for, musicals, but I loved Lucille Ball in this. I think that she is one of the best actors ever, and it's a shame she wasn't in more stuff, at least in this time frame. She's in more stuff way later, obviously. Most famously, I believe, was I Love Lucy. But yeah. Let's go down to trivia. Lucille Ball and Maureen O'Hara became inseparable friends while shooting this film. They remained lifelong friends until Ball's death in 1989. O'Hara was having lunch with her when Ball first saw her future husband, Desi Arnaz. Lucille Ball met her husband, Desi Arnaz, while she was shooting the picture. On the very day she first met him, she was made up to look like she had emerged from a cat fight with scratches, a black eye, and bandages, which resulted in Arnaz not paying much attention to her. Next time he saw her, she was not in costume, and he was immediately smitten. Yay? Hey, she had that riz, bro. A critical and commercial failure in its day, RKO ended up losing $400,000 over film's underperformance. I still think Lucille Ball did amazing in this film. Everybody says. So, what do I want to give this film? And honestly, despite it being a musical, I think it deserves a 7. If any other musical, I probably would have given it a much lower score. I have to stop being so biased with a lot of these, though, obviously. Quick little drink of water. Our next film of the day is The Seahawk. Ooh, this is a nice, strong film. Our director includes Michael Curtis. Writers include Howard Sexton I. Miller. And our stars include Errol Flynn, Brenda Marshall, and Claude Rains. So, a very strong lineup. Errol Flynn, I believe, we have seen a number of times on our lovely list. He played in Captain Blood, The Adventures of Robin Hood. He had a lot of good films. So, let us go down to what the film's about, obviously. Geoffrey Thorpe, a buccaneer, is hired by Queen Elizabeth to nag the Spanish Armada. The Armada is raiding on an attack on excuse me, on England, and Thorpe surprises them with attacks on their galleons, where he shows his skills with a sword. um, I think like every time I see by the sword, I think of Jake Hill's by the sword. It's such a good song. But let's go a little bit more to the film because I think that this film is just so cool, and it deserves me to like talk about a little bit more than usual films. Um, so yeah, obviously this film has some romance going on, and of course our leading man finds a lovely lady aboard a ship, and when he overtakes it, he finds her. They can fall for each other. It's a whole thing. Well, they don't fall for each other immediately. She wants nothing to do with him because he's a damn pirate, obviously. Um, Basically, to impress her, he gives back the jewels, and she fucking falls from him, falls from him then. The queen ends up being angry by his actions, and this outright says you're gonna stop being a pirate. He doesn't want to do this, obviously, and he is sent on a mission. He becomes a prisoner. Our lovely lady pines for him. He escapes, uncovers secrets. There's duels going on, and that is the gist. Henry Daniel couldn't fence. The cinematic duel had to be filmed using a double skillful intercutting. The scenes of Donna Maria's, Brenda Marshall's carriage traveling through the countryside were taken from another film. The movie had to be darkened to disguise the fact that the carriage was clearly too modern for this movie's Elizabethan setting. Basil Rathbone, who had previously fought Errol Flynn in Captain's Blood in 1935, and the Adventures of Robin Hood, had refused the role of Lord Wolfingham. Oh, he didn't want to come back for another one. He didn't want to get his ass beat again. 9. This film's a solid 9. Our next film, though, this is a Disney banger. This is a classic. It is Pinocchio. I don't really need to explain the story of Pinocchio, but I'll give you a very short one. Thank you, IMDb. A living puppet, with the help of a cricket, and as is conscious, must prove himself worthy to become a real boy. That is the gist. So our directors include Norman Ferguson, T. He, Wilfred Jackson. Our writers include Carlo Coldi, Ted Sears, Otto England. Excuse me. Stars include Dickie Jones, Christian Rubb, Mel Blanc. And we'll go right down to the trivia because we don't need to discuss this film. Come on now. If you grew up in America or in the West at all, you've probably seen Pinocchio 1,000 times, I imagine. Figaro was Walt Disney's favorite character. Disney pushed for the kitten to appear in the film as much as possible. After the film, Disney swapped Minnie Mouse's Pekingese Fifi with Fangio. Starting with First Aiders, 1934, Fangio also got his own series of cartoons, beginning with Fangio and Cleo in 1943. He would have 4 cartoons of his own, 2 appearances in the Pluto cartoon series, and appear in the promotional animated wartime short altogether in 1942. Jesus, they love that cat, I guess. Working models for all of Geppetto's cuckoo clocks were built as guides for animators. Interesting. Evelyn Venable, who was the physical model and voice of a Blue Fairy, was model for the original Columbia Pictures logo. Interesting. Okay, 1 second, people. Okay, my bad. So this film, well, it's a classic. It's great. I'm biased. It gets a 10. Next up on our list is Waterloo Bridge. I think we're fucking flying through this, but we're really not. I believe we had 27 films, and we're just blowing right through them. I've seen all of these already, and they were a fun time. So, Our director is Marvin Leroy. Writers include S.N. Berman, Hans Ramu, and George Frischel. Our stars include Vivian Leigh, Robert Taylor, and Lucille Watson. The film is about Myra and Roy. They meet and fall in love on Waterloo Bridge during an air raid. Their love will be one of the war's unspoken casualties. It is one of those lovely war films. We are getting to that point where the war is being adapted into film. Obviously, we've seen it already once before, obviously, and I think that is always a fun time. This film is of course, a sad one, very sad, and it features a topic I will not discuss, but it's something that I've often in the past provided a resource for. So you, oh wow, I was getting tripped up there for if you ever need it, but you probably understand what I'm getting at here. It is quite sad, and just for that alone, it's going to be a high score. Because Vivian Leigh, she owned that role. She fucking owned it. It is perhaps one of the best romance movies I've ever seen. It'll probably be the last romance movie I've ever seen that's really heart tugging like that. But let's go to our trivia. Of her films, this was Vivian Leigh's personal favorite. This was Robert Taylor's favorite of all his films, even though he was generally felt to be miscast as a British officer. The scene in which Myra and Roy dance to Auld Lang Syne was supposed to have dialogue, but nobody could come up with the right words. At about 3 minutes in the morning, before shooting, the scene was to be 3 in the morning. Oh my wow, 3 minutes in the morning. What? But to take place. Marvin Leroy, a veteran of silent films, realized that there shouldn't be any lines and that the images should speak for themselves. The result is the most celebrated scene of the film. Good. I think a lot of people forget that you don't need dialogue to make a good film. You can let your actions speak for you, and you can infer from it. Of course, dialogue is important, and you should not, not use it, obviously, but there are times where you just don't need to do it. But this film is getting a 9. This is a good film. This is a really good film. Next up is All This in Heaven 2. This is a good film. A really good film, because it features our girl, Bette Davis. So, our director is Ethel Ledvick. Writers include Rachel Field, Casey Robinson. Stars Bette Davis, Charles Boyer, and Jeffrey Lynn. Obviously, our girl, Bette Davis, owned this film. She's a dominator. The film is about a duchess's irrational behavior towards her children's governesses. Triggers tragic events that will change her family lives forever. This film is a ooh boy. It is quite haunting, of course. What can I say about this film? It takes place, I believe, in France, so it is very dramatic, and they really go out of their way to make sure that everything is really hitting the right way. But there's thing I want to say, but I feel like it'll be a major spoiler, and I don't want to spoil things, too much. You know what? I'll let you guys see the film, and then you'll understand what I mean. This film is something special. Trivia. June Lockhart's first credited role and second film. In addition, out of the 4 children starring in the movie, she was the only one to continue acting into adulthood. The budget for this film was much higher for a typical Warner Bros. Production. The studio was infamous for cutting corners on every conceivable aspect of the picture. This time, however, studio head Jack L. Warner wanted a film that would give the kind of prestige to Warner's that Gone with the Wind 1939 did for MGM. He spared no expense in trying to achieve that goal. In Hollywood Daffy, 1946, a cartoon version of Bette Davis is seen entering the Warner Bros. Studio. Lot, hold yourself. So you say I'm mean to you. You say I'm mad, cruel, domineering. Well, you're right, and I'm all this in heaven too. Yeah. Seven is a good film. Next up is another Disney banger, Fantasia. Mm. Needed water because, oh my lord, my voice is killing me. There's not that many films left, so it's okay. This, of course, as you can imagine, is another musical, but I'll let it slide. I'll let it slide this time. Directors include James Alger, Samuel Armstrong, Ford Beebe Jr. Writers include Joe Grant, Dick Humor, Lee Blair. Stars include Leopold Strotsky, Deems Taylor, and the Philadelphia Orchestra. So if you don't know what it's about, it's a, basically a bunch of classical pieces of music, and it's all conducted by Leopold Sutsky, and of course it's in animation, with using Disney characters, of course, such as Mickey. So let us go down to the trivia. But I will say, for a musical, I thought it was one of the best I've ever seen. It's probably one of the most essential films that Disney has ever made. That is what I will say. I feel like musical wise, Disney they never really topped their Fantasia, moment. But, of course, there was plenty of other songs they released in the last 20 years that are really good. Like Frozen's like Let It Go, obviously, that was good. And then there's a High School Musical that had tons of songs. But I think Fantasia is really special, even though it's just take on on rather very popular pieces that already existed. They're just doing their own thing with it, with the film. But it's time to do the trivia. The animators serially molded elements of the sorcerer and the sorcerer's apprentice on their boss, Walt Disney. The raised eyebrow was regarded as a dead giveaway. They called the character Yensid, which is Disney spelled backwards. The filming of the final Ave Maria, the sequence was plagued by mishap. To achieve the effect of moving through the scene, several panes of glass were used. The whole setup was over 200 feet long and had to be redone 3 times. The first time, the wrong lens was placed on the camera. In the subsequent film showed only not only the artwork, but the workers scurrying around. The second time, around an earthquake struck the studio. Okay, that's not their fucking fault. And the shot was once again scrapped. The next morning, the shot was redone. The film was shipped to the lab process and couriered to the premiere in New York, where it was spliced into the final print with only 4 hours to spare. Damn, racing its time. During production, the animators were given no instructions for coloring. Walt Disney instructed them to use any colors they wanted, which was a first. Oh, he wanted to go crazy. Let him be creative with it. This film, 10. I was tempted to say 9, but I think it's a solid 10. Next up will be a film that, well, it's a Western, but, it does have a, strong cast and a good director. Director includes Cecile B. DeMille. Writers include Alan Lee May, Jesse Lesky Jr., C. Gardner Sullivan. Stars include Gary Cooper, Madeline Carroll, and Paulette Goddard. I hope I said that right. If not, I'll say it again. Paulette Goddard. But of course, it's Gary Cooper in this film, so obviously it's gonna be strong, at least in that regard. The film was about a Texas Ranger in the year of 1895 who travels to Canada to arrest a trapper who is, I believe, was wanted for murder. Yeah. And of course, stirring up natives for a rebellion against the Canadian government. That is unique. It is very unique, considering the time frame. I believe this is also DeMille's first Technicolor film, so it was good one for that too. He did a really good job. let us go down to the trivia. Sorry, I'm going through this a bit faster now because I'm starting to lose my voice, and I need to get through this. But first, let me check the damn time. Oh, less than an hour still. Crazy. Cecil B. DeMille initially thought Paulette Goddard was wrong. Was all wrong for the role of the half-breed Indian girl. Marlene Dietrich, Vivian Leigh, Catherine D. DeMille, Simone Simon, Anna Sten, Olivia Bradna, and Stephanie Dunna were considered for the part, but when Goddard showed up in his office in costume and makeup speaking pidgin English, he cast her. This was Cecil B. DeMille and Gary Cooper's first Technicolor film. Oh, okay, let's both for first. The world premiere of the film was held in Regina, Saskatchewan. That's a name I could never really go for. The birthplace of the Northwest Mounted Police. So, what do I want with this film? I didn't hate the film. I just think out of all the films that we've seen in this lineup, this is probably the weakest of the bunch. I will give it a 5, but maybe one day I'll come back and give it a 6. I'm not sure. Probably not, though. Next up, this film has a very fun title because it has two different titles because of where it was released. So it was released first in the UK under the name Gaslight, but then it was released in the United States as the name Angel Street. I'm not sure exactly why the name was changed for us, but it was. And this is our only film that was released in the UK first for our lineup here. The rest is always US films, basically. Our director includes Harold Dickinson. Writers include Patrick Hamilton, A.R. Rowlson, Bridget Boland. Stars include Anton Wolbrecht, Diana Weinert, and Frank Pettingell. Pettingell, excuse me. After 20 years after the murder of Alice Barlow, her house is finally occupied again. However, the husband from the couple who moved in has a secret that will do anything to keep. I thought this film was great because it introduces a thing that is talked about a lot in the modern day, is gaslighting. There's a lot of manipulation going on in this film. If I recall correctly, it has been a bit of time. But yes, this is where the term gaslighting comes from. If you don't know, well, now you know. It's because in this film, it really popularized the term. Although I don't know if this one did it or its remake in 1944 is that they really really sold it. I'm not sure, but for now I'll just say this film did it because I can. Who's gonna stop me? It was a really interesting, psychological film. It was a whole lot of things going on. I think that. I'll say this. This film really tackles this subject really well. That there's a lot of manipulation going on in trying to convince the character Bella that she's insane and she has to be institutionalized. It is really intriguing. Oh boy. This is a really intriguing cast. These are characters this cast of characters I don't ever recall seeing beforehand. I could be wrong, of course. It's been so many damn films of us fucking far. So let's go to trivia. When MGM remade the film with Charles Boyer and Ingrid Bergman, the studio attempted to have all prints of this earlier version deleted. Fortunately, destroyed. Not deleted, destroyed. Fortunately, several prints escaped the fire. In fact, it is believed that director Harold Dickinson surreptitiously took a print himself before the negative was lost. The original play, Gaslight, opened in London on January 31st, 1939. Okay. Lord. On December 8th, 1945, Textron Theatre produced a 30-minute radio version of the original play by Patrick Hamilton and adapted by Robert Cinderella. It was for the CBS program The Textron Theater, starring Helen Hayes, and featured Boris Karloff, Helen Hayes, and Cedric Hardwicke. Now, what to give this film? I think it is deserving of a 9. Yes, a 9. Only because it tackles a subject that really does ring true to the modern day, and it does happen. People at Gaslight, try and deal with shit, and I think it's really cool that we just see something that's the the predecessor to this modern thing that happens today. One second, let me make sure I have everything right. Okay, next film. We are almost done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 films left, and we're done. This next one is a really big film. This one is The Mortal Storm. We are in for a fun time. So, The Mortal Storm has the director of Frank Bouzier. The writers include Claudine West, Hans Ramu, George Froschel, and our stars include Margaret Sullivan, James Stewart, and Robert Young. A nice, strong star list. So, let me go down to this. So, the Roth family leads a very quiet life in a small alpine village until they are divided by the Nazi. Yeah, it was divided by Nazi regime, and a friend is caught up in the turmoil. So this, of course, is a anti-Nazi film, of course, because it kind of has to be, and it's a very good thing because this film tackles a lot of damn drama. It's like this is a German family, of course, and I thought that was something that was so cool because it shows how freedom is lost in the film and how things to be different than others are. And we see a lot of how the regime is portrayed as a brutal thing, and it is brutal. They were evil. They were all this and that, and this film really tackled it in the right way. So, the trivia. Nazi leader Adolf Hitler banned this film from release in Germany because of its strong anti-Nazi sentiment. In addition, all MGM films from that point until the end of the war were also banned in Germany because of a studio made this one. At the start, At the start, Professor Roth, or rather Frank Morgan, is celebrating his 60th birthday. In fact, when Morgan filmed that scene, he was closer to his 50th birthday, and unfortunately did not live to see his 60th. He was born on June 1st, 1890, and died September 18th, 1949. When this movie was made, America was not a part of World War II. Most of the heads of the major studios in Hollywood were for American involvement in the war. This movie is one of the number made during the late 1930s and early 1940s that represented the belief that these films include A Yank and the Raft, 1941, Manhunt, 1941, Foreign Correspondent, 1940, Confessions of a Nazi Spy, 1939, and Sergeant York, 1941. Okay, this film will be getting a 8. Next up, this is a horror film, our only horror film of the day. We've seen him before, we'll see him again. Well, we won't actually see him because, he's the Invisible Man. The Invisible Man returns. Our director includes Joe May. Writers include H.G. Wells, Joe May, and Kurt Sadamak. Stars include Cedric Hardwicke, Vince Prince, and Nan Gray. The owner of a coal mine operation, falsely in prison for fratricide, takes a drug to make him invisible. Despite its side effects, includes gradual madness. It is a film. It's not the best film, but it's good. It's good for what it is. Do I think it's a good film for a franchise? It's whatever. It's not good as original. That's what I'll say immediately. What I will say is the ending was solid. I think that the film tackles, what's the word? injustice well, despite that our protagonist is, he's falsely accused, he's going insane, he's doing all this shit as the Invisible Man, but he's ultimately cleared of his name, and he's able to be saved in the end, which is always good. Um, let's go to our trivia of this film. This film's impressive visual effects, words, specifically the scene in which Vincent Price transitions from invisible to invisible, earned it an Academy Award nomination. There were communication problems during the shooting of the film. The German director spoke no English, and Vincent Price, being fluent in German, had to translate all the instructions to the other cast members. Despite going over budget, this is one of the more profitable of Universal's horror films. It eventually grossed nearly 4 times its cost of $230,000. Hey, good for them. Very good. This is one of Vincent Price's This is one of Vincent Price's first featured roles, but despite playing the title character, he was billed second after the better-known Cedric Hardwicke. Oh, that sucks. It always sucks when, you get sidelined like that. Despite, so we are done reading the trivia. I think for the hate I gave it, I considered what I said was a bit of hate. I do think it's a good film. 6. It's good. Solid. Next up is Boomtown. Our director is Jack Conway. Writers include John Lee Mahan, James Edward Grant. Stars include Clark Gable, Spencer Tracy, and Claudette Colbert. A very strong cast. Two buddies who rise from fly-by night wildcatters to oil tycoons over a 10-year period are in love with the same woman. It's one of those films, boys and gals, and spaghetti monsters. But hey, Clark Gable owned this shit. I believe we don't see him much longer after this, do we? Let me check. Nope. We do see him for a while longer, which is good. Very good. To trivia, please. Yes, I am rushing now because my voice is dying. It is almost over, boys and girls. Clark Gable was anxious to do the film because his father had been an oil rigger, and Gable himself had worked on oil rigs in Oklahoma before becoming an actor. This was the last of 3 films after San Francisco in 1936 and Test Pilot in 1938 that Gable and Spencer Tracy made together. After this film, Tracy insisted on a clause in his MGM contract that he would receive equal billing with Gable in all feature films. While the two remained lifelong friends, they were never again paired together because MGM wasn't sure how to handle the equal billing. Tracy deliberately associated less with Gable after 1942, as he was trying to stay off alcohol. And Gable was always constantly surrounded by alcohol. Oh, that sucks. Hedy Lamarr wears the same style of a hat that Greta Garbo made famous a year earlier in Nino Cheka, 1939. All right, this film. 8. Next up is Go West. This is a good one. As much hatred I throw away. Well, that's not really hatred. It's just more or less indifference to them. To the Groucho brothers. I said that's so wrong. The Groucho brothers, the Marx brothers. Good lord, put respect on their damn name. Me. Ugh. I do think this is one of their strongest damn films. That's what I'll say. Our director includes Edward Bazale. Writers include Irvin Butcher and Buster Keaton. Buster Keaton's great. Stars include Groucho Marx, Chico Marx, and Harpo Marx. The Marx brothers come to the rescue in the Wild West after a young man, trying to settle an old family feud so he can marry the girl he loves, runs a full of crooks. Very basic plot, but it works. It's not bad. One thing I think here is so I enjoyed this film, but a lot of people did not enjoy it. I think that Buster Keaton made this film work, but it's one of those things where we have all different opinions on it. But to trivia, The name of Groucho Marx's character, S. Quentin Quayle, caused a stir when the film first released due to the subtle but clear joke that the use of the term Sin Quentin Quayle, which means jail bait. Oh no. Winston Churchill was informed of Rudolf Hess's capture in Scotland just before he was about to see a private screening of this film. Spurning a more detailed briefing, Churchill famously commented, "Well, Hess or no Hess, I'm off to see the Marx Brothers." Different versions of the story insisted that the film Churchill was to see was Monkey Business in 1931, or The Big Store in 1941. At around 15 minutes, one of the two movies where Groucho Marx plays a guitar and sings, the other one was Horse Feathers, 1932, excuse me. Oh, Lord. I think this film's a solid 6. It's usually, around the same story, again, most of the Marx Brothers films, anyway. Next up is The Letter. This, of course, stars our girl, Bette Davis. The wife of a rubber plantation, and, oh, you know what, I'm skipping ahead. Director includes William Wyler. Writers include W. Somerset Maugham, Howard Koch. Stars include Bette Davis, Herbert Marshall, and James Templeton. Now to description. The wife of a rubber plantation administrator shoots a man to death and claims it was self-defense, but a letter written in her own hand proves her undoing. Oh boy. Another great role by Bette Davis. She really played Leslie Crosby really well. Although, I do think that Mr. Marshall did a great job too. You know what? I don't know what to say. Let's go to trivia. The first scene that William Wyler filmed was famous for opening shot in which Leslie shoots Geoffrey Hammond. The sequence was listed 2 minutes on the screen. Took an entire day to film. And that was before even a single word of dialogue was spoken. The studio was expecting him to shoot at a rate of 3 to 4 script pages a day, but the opening shot reflected a mere paragraph on one page. Wow. Huh. Okay. According to Bette Davis, actor James Simpson often would get into fights with William Wyler during the film and walk off set out of frustration. She recalled, every time Jimmy would leave, I would run after him and make him come back, saying, "It will be worth it, Jimmy, don't go. You'll give a great performance of your career under Wyler's direction." Each time Simpson would return to work and shooting would resume. That's good. Jack L. Warner originally asked William Wyler to test James Simpson for the role of the lawyer Wyler. Was surprised at how suited Simpson was for the part, and then was astonished when Warner balked at casting him. Worrying about the stock player's lack of a name recognition, Wyler insisted on keeping him, putting him in the odd position of having to fight the cast an actor that Warner had originally suggested. Damn. He was been fighting for his damn life. 7. This film needs a 7. Next up, They Drive by Night. Another really good film. This, of course, includes director who I have placed on a People of this Decade at least once or twice, Raoul Walsh. Writers include Jerry Wald, Richard Macaulay, A.I. Bezaries. Stars include George Raft, Humphrey Bogart, and Anne Sheridan. So we have a rather intriguing group of folks, that's for sure. Let's go to what our film is actually about. When one of the two truck driving brothers loses an arm, they both join a transport company, where the other is falsely charged as an accessory in the murder of the owner. Yeah, this is a one of those kind of films, if you know what I mean. It's a nice crime film, but although it does wrap up in a in a pretty expected way, of course. I mean, how else would you expect it to really, happen? And of course, it includes some romance, because it can't be a film without some romance, apparently. But I think that Anne Sheridan, who played Cassie, did a good enough job. But Humphrey Bogart is the one that we came here to see, of course. It is this film is noir, and I like noir, and I really wish I placed this film much earlier, and when my voice was still good. Because I have like a lot more to say, but it's almost gone, man. Let's go to trivia before I'm completely dead. According to the special feature about this film on the DVD release, all scenes are filmed in sequence. Alan Hale wears a gold pinky ring in this movie. Some 23 years later, the same ring can be seen on the pinky of his son, Alan Hale Jr., while he's playing a skipper on Gilligan's Island in 1964. After his father's death, Hale Jr. wore this ring for the rest of his life in memory of his father, whom he was very close with. Film debut of William Bendix, although uncredited, unfortunately. This film gets a 7. And now, this is a film that is the last on our list. Strike Up the Band. Our director includes Busby Berkeley. Writers include John Munch Jr., Fred F. Fricklehoff, and Herbert Fields. Stars include Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland, and Paul Whiteman. So, of course, this is a Judy Garland film. Solid film. But let's go into the description. A high school boy wants to become a professional musician, and his gal pal wants to become his best gal. They work together, staging big band shows with fellow classmates and hopes of hitting it big. This is. I think that. Ooh, man. Despite this being a musical, and as you know, I don't like musicals, I think that this film tackles a pretty not a big topic, obviously. It shows that music can really help people's life, their livelihoods. Because Jimmy is our protagonist, of course. He has all sorts of things happen to him throughout this whole damn film. He has obligations and stuff like that, and he has to do a whole impromptu musical number. What else happened? Oh, and he also had to do an orchestra as a drummer in New York. He was very excited about that one, if I recall correctly. And there is, of course, a big finale. I kind of wish there was actually more focus on the relationship between Judy and the male lead, but there just is not that much. But that's okay. That's okay. The original camera negative was destroyed in May 1978 during a nitrate film fire in the George Eastman's house archives. The fire also destroyed 320 other films. The original camera negatives. Oh boy. The puppet orchestra made of fruit that comes to life, playing instruments for Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland on a kitchen table, was a work of the animator George Pal. He had just arrived in Hollywood from Europe via New York, and this was among his first projects. Pal's works was relatively unknown by American audiences, plus he was uncredited. The idea for the sequence was that of another New York to Hollywood transfer. The huge and stunning Do La Conga production number was shot in one take as director Busby Berkeley prepared the cast and crew by rehearsing the number 4 for 13 straight days. Oh wow. Jeez. And I will end this one off with an 8. This was a solid year, but oh my lord, did it kill my fucking voice. Oh boy. But we're not done just yet. We do have a single a single thing left for this section we have to cover, the Scythes. And I will be selecting who my favorite thing was throughout each category. Well, some of the categories, because my voice. Now, Best Picture was won, I believe, by Rebecca. And it was also the only Hitchcock film to actually win Best Picture. And I think this is the correct choice. Sure. It gets it. Next up is Best Actor, which was James Stewart in the Philadelphia Story. I also agree that he did an amazing work there. I can't really think of anybody who actually tops him, top of my head, outside of Errol Flynn, of course. Now the best best actress was Ginger Rogers in Kitty Foyle, which I have not seen, and that's not actually on the list. I thought, of course, Who was it? Oh my lord, it's in my mind. One second. I'll remember it. It's in my name. Lucille Ball. Yep, she deserves it for her role. Um, what? Oh my lord, how am I forgetting it already? She played in Dance Girl Dance, which I thought she did amazing in. Of course, Vivian Leigh is up there too. We will be doing the supporting, and that's all I really have to cover for this because my voice is just really killing me at this point. But let's go to the final part of this, which is four songs. So this year, as you can imagine, is pretty much kind of a samies, kind of a samies. That's kind of how we've been doing for a lot of this shit, unfortunately. But music is getting better continuously. But my favorite song, what song do I think is the best of this particular year? It's a bit different from all the others. I suppose, in my opinion, the best one was "I'll Never Smile Again" by Tommy Dorsey. Although I suppose "Frenzy" or "Frenzy" by Artie Shaw is a good one too. Either way, they're both solid ones. But that's all I really have to say for this year. This year was solid, perhaps the best year overall. Um, for me, it's up to debate though. There's tons of films that we obviously don't see, and it isn't do big numbers. It's all in the air, at least in my opinion. I I don't do solely by sales. That's silly. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe for more, and peace.